I was sitting like in my bed on a nightly basis, just, praying like, God, please, just like, if you could, if you're real, if you could do anything to like just make me not addicted to these drugs anymore. I came from just a normal family. There was no like violence in the home, or there was no drugs or drinking like that. And people came up to me and they're like, hey, me too, man.
Do you think there's more people from normal families getting into it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Jeff, it's great to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You have a very interesting story. You actually, you were facing addiction and you managed to get out of it. And then now you're helping people that are dealing with addiction. Can you tell us your story first?
Sure. Well, my name is Jeff. I grew up down here in Southern California, Newport Beach to be specific, and very normal childhood, nothing out of the ordinary. I grew up playing Little League, T-ball, surfing, skateboarding, just normal kid stuff, riding a bike, scraping my knees, and normal stuff. There wasn't any type of abuse in the household. There wasn't any like particular trauma that led me to addiction. But somehow I found it. I found drugs and alcohol. I found, or it found me, I'm not sure which is which, but I somehow stumbled upon it. But I went to Catholic school growing up, like kindergarten through 8th grade. And again, normal childhood, nothing crazy out of the ordinary and stuff like that. Maybe I experimented with marijuana like 6th or 7th grade, I want to say. Fairly young age to experiment with that, but I didn't get hooked right away. It was like maybe a every other weekend type of thing, or just an occasional thing to do with the friends and stuff like that. But as I got to high school, I discovered a little bit more harder drugs, like maybe some cocaine here and there, and drinking a little bit more heavily. And it's still, I wouldn't call it a problematic issue at that time either. It was just more of doing it like with friends at parties and just like in a recreational setting here and there. It hadn't become a real problem yet. But after I got out of high school, I started working in gyms and stuff and found my passion for fitness and helping people. I think the passion was just for helping people right off the bat, and I didn't know in what capacity at the time, but I figured I could help people through their physical fitness. I always enjoyed helping people. I still, to this day, enjoy it. But I started working in gyms, and working in gyms, especially like martial arts gyms, boxing, wrestling and stuff, you get injured quite often. And I got an injury.
So you were teaching or fighting or?
Yeah, I was teaching boxing classes. I was boxing and sparring and wrestling and doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. This was back in the early 2000s too, when it wasn't as popular as it was today. So I did get an injury. I broke my arm. I broke my elbow, and a doctor prescribed me painkillers at the time. And I didn't even necessarily really like them at first. I took them as prescribed, and nothing. It was just a normal. I went through the prescription as the doctor prescribed. Like, I took exactly how he told me to do it. And then the following year, the arm healed up okay. The following year, I broke the same arm again, and I went back to a doctor, and I found myself finishing the prescription in one day. I ate 20 pills in one day. I was just like, wow, I don't know why I like them so much, but I do now all of a sudden. From there, it was just off to the races. I went and quickly tried to obtain another prescription, and the doctor said, he's like, well, I'll give you one more. But after that, you're kind of on your own. I very quickly found a crooked doctor here in Orange County that was prescribing me pretty much whatever I wanted, like hundreds of Vicodins a month, some other benzodiazepines too, and some other things as well. But so quickly my addiction was taken off right there. But at first it was manageable. At first I would call it manageable. I was taking maybe 3 a day at the time, 3 a day, and everything was great. It felt as though I was invincible, or you take them, and I was teaching the best classes, like in the morning, the best boxing classes. My classes were full. I wasn't impaired, like I wasn't slurring my speech, or I wasn't slow, or like, I was very energetic, like quite the opposite, very energetic, very outgoing. I think for the first time, it took away all that fear and anxiety in my life that like, I didn't even know I had, but it did. You know, I was all of a sudden very sociable. I could talk to anybody without being nervous, or it just felt like on top of the world. So everything was going great and life was good for those first couple of years. Everything was really good. You know, a lot of people say like, think it starts off really dark or it starts off, but for me, it was great. I had a nice place by the beach. I had a nice truck, a nice motorcycle. You know, in my early 20s, everything a kid could want. From there, I began to develop a tolerance. So where I was taking 3 a day, like that 3 just wasn't doing it anymore. I wasn't feeling the effects of 3 anymore. So I would need to double that. Like, so now I was taking 6 a day.
Could people tell that you're taking these drugs when you
Not at this time. Not at this time. It was still, the 3 weren't doing the effect anymore, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do more. And then as soon as I took 6, it was like the same as if I was doing 3. And then it was back to normal, but business as usual. You know, I felt good and everything was getting done. I mean, I would have a hard day at work at the gym all day and I'd come home and clean my house. Like I'd clean the ceilings and vacuum and everything would look perfect. I mean, it was just, gave me unlimited energy. But then I would say people started to notice maybe a few years into it where the tolerance had grown, definitely, and I was taking 10 to 15 a day or something like that. But the only time it became noticeable was when I was out, or when I was like, you know what I mean? When I ran out for a brief time until I could go see my doctor again. Because those 120, even though I was getting 120 a month, they would run out before the next month to go see him again. So that's when they would notice, because I would be sick, I would be sweating, I'd be shaking a little bit. But once I was on them, I mean, once I was taking them, it was like back to normal. It was like this right now. You would not really be able to tell. But then as opiate addictions go, my addiction and my tolerance kept growing and growing and growing. And I developed an insatiable appetite that I couldn't, a thirst I couldn't quench with just 120. So I had to supplement by going to find more on the street and the black market and stuff like that. And I'm taking more and more and more. And we were finding the Oxycontins for a minute there too. Those were too strong for my doctor to prescribe to me at the time. So, but we were getting them on the black market and I was taking those and pretty soon it just came to a point where someone's like, hey, why don't you try this heroin stuff? And I'm like, I'm from, you know, I'm not from like the hood or anything like that. I'm from Newport Beach. Like, I'm like, oh my God, heroin? Like, are you serious, man? Like, that's crazy. Like, I grew up, you know, going to DARE classes and stuff like that. And school, I had this vision of like homeless people or like criminals, like shooting heroin under a bridge like that. And he's like, no, man, it's not like that. You just, you smoke a little bit and it's like the same thing. And I was really scared at first, but then I smoked it, and I realized it was the exact same feeling as the prescription medication that the doctor was giving me. If anything, it was a little bit less potent. It was a less,
wow.
Yeah, it was very strange. I was like, oh my God, I thought this was gonna be completely like impair, and it can if you do too much of it, but at first it was just the same feeling. But as the addiction gets, you know, it just grows and grows and grows. If it could just stay like it was at the beginning, like I probably wouldn't even be sober. Who knows, maybe, but it was great. But then it gets worse and worse and you need more and more and more. Your addiction demands more and more opiates to satisfy that feeling. At one point, I think it was around 2000, must have been like 2012 or 13, I kind of realized that I had a problem. Like there was a problem going on. I could not stop. I tried many times to stop on my own, and it was, you know, I couldn't get past like noon without taking something.
This is an exclusive episode which is going to be available on Ganjin World or epochtv.com. We're going to leave you the links below. If you or your loved ones are facing addiction or dealing with addiction, make sure to watch this episode. Make sure to share this with your friends and family members who are dealing with addiction. There is a way out, and Jeff is going to explain how to do that. I'm Siama Kurami, and this is California Insider.